Can't you just feel it? The conflict is becoming apparent in our culture. It reminds me of those words of John Paul II. We're now living in the final confrontation between the gospel and the anti-gospel, between the church and the anti-church, between Christ and the antichrist. And if we don't choose to know God's word, to believe God's word, and follow God's word, we're going to be a sitting duck for all kinds of confusion, all kinds of disorder. Those are really important choices that people have to make.
And these choices are difficult. Who am I going to marry? What kind of life am I going to live? How am I going to raise my kids? What am I going to do with my time, my talent, and my treasure? And I have to make a choice today. Jesus says to each one of us, I came that you might have life and have it to the full. The question is, do we want it? Welcome, friends, to another week of The Choices We Face. I'm Peter Herbeck, and it's my great delight to welcome today, Dan and Sarah Mishler. They are the parents of 8 children and 1 on the way. So they've got 9. They got 1 in the hopper. Mm-hmm. And they have an amazing story to tell about family life and being able to face in God and in faith all the challenges that can come your way in family life. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, yes. Before jumping into that, Dan, what do you do for a living?
So I'm a program manager at a local AI startup, Series B. So got a decent amount of funding behind us and trying to capitalize on some of the popularity around ChatGPT and all that. So.
Oh yeah, and you're still in school?
I actually just started my today my 3rd master's degree. So I have a MBA from University of Michigan, and then a master's in finance from Walsh College of Business, and then now I'm going back to University of Michigan for a master's in program and project management.
Yeah, yeah. Sarah, somebody told me you were also in interior design at one point. Really?
Yes, never been formally trained, but I love it. It's just kind of my creative outlet and a passion, and I've done it for a lot of friends, helped them with projects, and then have done it through basically like just communication online with clients around the U.S. for like a year or so, a little longer than that.
Oh, good.
And now I mostly just focus on my home. So
plenty to focus on. How did you two meet?
So we met at a bar.
Oh, really?
Now, Theology on Tap at Connor O'Neill's in downtown Ann Arbor. So I knew that I had a pretty good chance that, if there was a very attractive young woman, that she would be of the same faith and kind of have that same motivations that I would have. So, confidence was high when I went there. And it was kind of funny because we were just sitting at a table, separate tables, and we were doing the whole, I would look back at her. And when I looked back at her, I'd notice she would look at me, she'd look away, and then she would look back at me, and I'd look away.
Who's that guy over there?
Eventually, I knew her. I had met her older sister one time, once before, and so I just picked up my beer and went over to their table, sat down, and said, "Hi, Erica." And I turned to Sarah, and I said, "Hi, I'm Dan." And then
I should mention, I was at a table with 10 girls.
Oh, really?
So it took a lot of boldness to come over and plop himself down among 10 women.
Yeah. So it was fun because very intimidating, but I think the Holy Spirit filled me with some boldness there, and just sat down and asked if I could buy her a beer. And I like to joke our whole relationship is founded on a lie, because I asked her if she had this particular type of beer before, and she said no, but she come to find out years later that she actually had that beer.
I was afraid he wouldn't buy the beer for me if I had to.
So I'm so glad we began here. So for every young guy who might be watching this show, okay, take a lesson from Dan. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, don't be not afraid, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That's
so
kind of been the mantra of our marriage. So.
Yeah. And so when did you get married?
We got married 2 years later to the day. At St. Thomas in Ann Arbor. So
we were long distance the whole time too, because he was in the Coast Guard. So
it's very clear. Faith is like at the foundation of your life in different ways,
absolutely.
and thanks be to God, it came in handy. I mean, the Lord has blessed you. First of all, the Lord has blessed you with 8 children, now number 9 on the way, and your openness to life is pretty amazing and very, very inspiring. But the journey's not always so easy, and you guys have a really significant story to tell. And I want to just be able to give you time to just share what the Lord took you through and what you've learned and the blessings you've received through it all.
Yeah. So we got married May 31st, And then 2014, June, the following month, I found out I was pregnant and lost the baby, had a miscarriage.
Oh, okay.
The month after that, got pregnant again, lost the baby. And then the month after that, got pregnant with twins. So we were obviously super excited and everything went well in the beginning. And then besides being very, very, very sick, very sick, I was teaching full time down in Tampa, Florida. And I can remember being in the middle of a lesson and having to like duck behind my desk and throw up to go and then go back and finish the lesson.
Oh my goodness.
And,
wow.
There was one time I had to throw up and I didn't know where to go because the bathroom door was locked, the only bathroom. So I ran out into the courtyard and just kind of leaned over some bushes and was throwing up. And then the bell rang for class dismissal. So like 200 students flooded into the courtyard and bent over in the bushes and everyone's walking by me. Hi, Mrs. Mishler. Hi, Mrs. Mishler. I was like trying to wave and keep up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so besides that, things went fine in the beginning. And then we went to our 20-week, anatomy scan for the twins. And at that appointment, it was a very, very long appointment. I remember the tech being very quiet while she took all the pictures. Not super unusual, but she just seemed unusually quiet. She took a lot of pictures. And then she left and came back with the doctor. And the doctor said, so we're pretty sure you have twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, which has a 90% fatality rate. And he said there's a very risky surgery that can be done, but there are only a couple hospitals in the entire world who are willing to perform this surgery. But there's a slight chance that they'll survive if you get this surgery done. And he said, we're not 100% sure that's what it is. So check out with the front desk, schedule an appointment for a week, and we'll confirm it. And then walked out of the room.
Oh, my.
And that was it. And I think the two of us were I was in shock. It was just a little bit like, well, hang on, like, what did he just say?
Yeah.
So we walked out, we made the appointment for a week from that day. And
can I ask what that week, do you guys have any memory of that week itself together?
There's more to this story.
The week never came to pass because Dan, typical amazing Dan, sprang into action as soon as we left the appointment and started calling around and trying to figure out which hospitals were willing to do this surgery.
Okay.
He found out University of Michigan did the surgery, which all of our family is from this area. And we were in Florida at the time. I can't remember if I mentioned that. So we were living in Florida, and we found out U of M was one of the only hospitals that did the surgery. So he called, and they put him directly in touch with the surgeon who does the surgery. And she said, if this is twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, you should not be waiting a week to have this confirmed. This was a Friday. She said, I'll clear my schedule if you can be in my office at 8 a.m. Monday morning. She said, I'll clear my schedule for you if you can get up here to Michigan. So it was a bit of a whirlwind because we were down in Florida. I was teaching full-time. He was in the Coast Guard. I ended up that night, Friday night, staying up the entire night, all through the night, writing lesson plans, putting binders together for the teacher that was going to take my place, just gathering all my materials, writing out my scope and sequence, all through the night. The next day, I went into the school, met with the principal, quit my job, packed up my office, packed a suitcase. Dan was headed to a training school in Virginia for 10 days?
No, it was actually 6 weeks. It was supposed to be 6 weeks.
Yeah. Way off. He was heading up the next day for Virginia for training school. I packed my little suitcase. Never crossed my mind in a million years that I would never return to Florida. Flew up to Michigan, and Monday morning, 8 a.m., met with the surgeon that we had spoken to. And I remember that morning, it was horrible, horrible snowstorm. We left at like 7 a.m., like barely got there to U of M. Dan was gone, so I went with my mom to the appointment.
Oh, so it's amazing it happened in Ann Arbor where your family is located. What a blessing for you guys, and that just
huge
overwhelming moment
Yes.
that you were able to land in your mom's arms, sort of. You know what I mean?
I mean, miracle number one, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
It was like God.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Miracle number one, yeah.
Number one. Keep track. There are a lot of them.
Yeah.
So we went to the appointment, and the doctor took us into her office, which is never a good sign, right? Like we finished the ultrasound and she said, I need you to come into my office to talk. And I can remember that room perfectly. It's a tiny little room. It felt very cold and sterile. And she said, so it was misdiagnosed. It's not twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. It's actually selective intrauterine growth restriction. And there is a 100% fatality rate. They have zero chance of survival. And Dan can speak to the specifics of it a little more, but basically the placenta was unevenly divided between the twins. We had no idea how unevenly divided, but one of the twins was receiving only a tiny, tiny fraction of what she needed to survive, tiny fraction of nutrients. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on what.
So basically the way it goes is eventually as the babies grow, the one with less access to nutrients stops growing. And then eventually it'll get to the point where that baby will die. And then when that baby dies, that typically causes a stroke in the other baby. And so then both babies die. And so it's at this point where the doctor recommended the only medical intervention she suggested was basically, the way she put it was, we can cut the cord of the smaller one to give the larger one a chance to live.
Oh my, yeah.
That was the only.
Yeah.
She said it was her medical professional opinion to cut the cord of one.
You were in you were at U of M Mott Hospital or whatever when you heard it. You were on the road. Yep. She calls you to tell you the alternative that the doctor's proposing.
Yep.
Wow, what a moment! Do you remember?
Yeah,
you obviously remember it. I mean, obviously remember it.
Clearly remember that.
Yeah, like your experience right in that moment.
I picked up the phone and we walked out. My dad had driven us because the snow was so bad. He drove us there, and I walked out into the waiting room. My dad goes, "So how did it go?" It was just, I was trying to keep it together at that point. I was just kind of in shock, and I remember asking the doctor before I left, "Is there anything that I can do?" I'm a major control freak. Have always been my entire life, just a control freak and a planner. And she just looked at me and she said, "There's absolutely nothing. I'm sorry, there's nothing. You just have to wait for the first baby to pass away. And then the next baby would have a stroke very shortly after." And that was it. There was nothing. Yeah. So I remember when we drove home. It was a very silent car ride home. I got home, I picked up the phone, I called Dan, and I just sobbed for what felt like, I don't even know how long it was. It felt like, it was probably at least 10 minutes. I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. I didn't even know what to say. And he obviously realized that it had not gone well. And I remember distinctly the first words out of his mouth were, "It's going to be okay. We have to trust." And that's what he said. It's going to be okay. I didn't even fill him in on the details yet. I hadn't filled him in at that point. He knew something was not good at all. And all he said was, "It's going to be okay. We have to trust." Yeah. And that was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And it's one of those moments where I always knew I married the right guy, obviously. From the second I met him, I knew I was meant to marry him. And I knew it, but it was in that moment that it was just okay, yeah, he's amazing. He was exactly what I needed. And from that moment on, which we'll get into more of the details, but he was my rock and absolutely my rock always. I tend to be a little more emotional. I get more just anxious and tend to jump to worst case scenario always. It's just kind of my first reaction is always to think of the worst case scenario and jump there. And Dan is constantly bringing me back, refocusing and saying, no, we need to focus our eyes on God, and it's going to be okay. And he was just constantly my rock every second of the journey. Yeah.
So you hang up the phone.
Yeah.
And then what do you remember about?
Pray.
Yeah, you started praying.
Start praying. You get on your knees and beg, right? And but also just similar to the agony in the garden, that was what I meditated on at that point. Was just, if it be your will, let this chalice pass from us, right? But if not, if we have to drink, then we'll drink, right? That's what we have to do. And it is kind of the beauty of the complementarity of marriage, right? Is that when we got married, if we had met before college or during college, it probably wouldn't have worked out. because we're very different. I'm very laid back, very
little more
easygoing.
intense.
You know, if you wait till
Opposites attract. That's part of the deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you wait till
Sure.
the last minute, it only takes a minute
Yeah.
for school, and she does all her assignments the first week of school. Perfect. So I think for this scenario, though, God knew what He was doing with what He's given us, with both challenges and the blessings that He's done throughout our life, because we together we're stronger than each of us individually. And
Yeah.
you know, she has the grit, the determination to just push through anything, which when you're a mom of 8 children under the age of 9 and have a 9th on the way, that's key. Whereas I am more, let's just take it as it comes. Don't worry about what you can't control. Trust the rest of God. Matthew 6, the Sermon on the Mount. You know, if He cares for the birds, if He cares for the flowers in the field, how much more is He going to care for you? And then Romans 5 also is, you know, therefore rejoice in your sufferings. Suffering yields perseverance. Perseverance yields hope, and hope does not disappoint. That was kind of our mantra. And so I immediately informed my command and was able to drive home to go and support her. And of course, you know, with the recommendation of that doctor, we walked out of U of M, didn't go back, because there was no way we were going to abort. They didn't say that. They didn't say abort. They didn't say terminate. They didn't say kill.
Yeah.
But we weren't going to do it. And so we went to St. Joseph Mercy, which Catholic hospital, and the doctors there were amazing. The other key detail of going to St. Joe's was U of M. One of the questions we'd asked was, okay, like if this condition gets worse, can you just induce or have a C-section and deliver them and give them a shot in the NICU, even if they're 22, 24 weeks?
Right.
You know, medical technology has come a long way.
Once they reach viability.
Exactly.
Sure.
Would you deliver?
Yeah.
And they said no. They have a policy of probably a CYA don't sue me policy of not delivering before 28 weeks if it's not natural labor.
So even if I had somehow made it to 27 weeks, 6 days, they said they were not willing to deliver the babies.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So St. Joe's, we went there and they were just like, we'll do everything we can.
Yeah, say the
Thank
word.
God for Catholic Hospital.
Amen.
Yes.
And the doctors there were amazing. And basically the way this condition worked was there were 3 phases of it. First phase, they monitor the blood flow through the umbilical cord essentially. And there's always some blood flowing through. So there's always some volume going through. And the way this condition progresses is in the first phase, every once in a while it dips to 0. So there's every once in a while the blood stops flowing through the umbilical cord. And then that can last any period of time. But then in stage 2, it starts to actually every time hit 0 in between heartbeats of the mother. And then stage 2, with all the research they've done, and even though this is fairly new diagnosis, basically they said stage 2 typically never goes more than 2 weeks. And when we went into that appointment, we were already in stage 2.
2 weeks was the longest they had ever seen a baby survive. Ever. When
with
they
this
were in
condition.
stage 2.
Yeah.
And then stage 3 happens where now the blood actually reverses out of the umbilical cord. And then you have about a week before that baby will die. And so we were already in stage 2. So here we are doing the math. We're at 20 weeks, 20 and a half weeks basically. And all right, 2 weeks, that we're not even going to get to 24 weeks. Below 24 weeks, your odds are below 50% of survival. And that's nothing to say of any developmental issues. And so that leads to basically what has become the foundation of our marriage is this trust in divine mercy. So
Jesus, I trust in you. Both of us, we developed a very, very strong devotion to divine mercy.
Yeah.
And we started praying divine mercy chaplets like every second of the day. Like I pretty much was always saying a divine mercy chaplet like almost every single day, all through the day, all through the night. It was just like constantly. I bought a big picture of Jesus, I trust in you, the image of divine mercy, hung it above my bed. And I would wake up in the morning and I didn't get out of bed until I felt like I couldn't get out of bed until I felt something, just to know that they made it through the night. So I would just lay in bed and pray divine mercy chaplets over and over and over again until I felt some movement. And then I was like, okay, I can get out of bed and face this day. Anytime I noticed I hadn't felt them for a little bit, it was just divine mercy chaplet, divine mercy over and over and over again. Jesus, I trust in you. And at this point, we started going to ultrasounds every other day. So just to kind of monitor. And at every appointment, they were basically like, well, we're not really sure like how they're still alive. Like, don't expect them to be alive by the next appointment, but like come back the day after tomorrow. And there was just every other day. And every day was this, just every moment of every single day was this constant surrendering, knowing that it could be the absolute last moment that the babies were alive. We made it another week. And then the following week, I went to Mass, and someone randomly came up to me. I didn't know her. She came up and she handed me a card of Divine Mercy. And she said, "Have you ever been to the Shrine of Divine Mercy in Detroit?" So God clearly just put it on her heart to make me aware of it. This was a Monday, the following Monday. And I was like, "Oh, no, I haven't." So anyway, I took the card. The next day, Tuesday, I realized I hadn't felt movement in a while. It had been a few hours. So that afternoon, I kind of spent the afternoon kind of poking and prodding and trying to switch positions, try to feel something. Absolutely nothing. It had been the longest I had ever not felt movement. Hours passed, nothing. Night came, nothing. I laid in bed awake all night praying Divine Mercy chaplets, felt absolutely nothing. The next morning, Wednesday, still nothing. We decided to go to the Shrine of Divine Mercy in Detroit. So we drove down there, got lost. Thankfully, we made it there on time for Mass. I had still felt nothing. So it had been over 24 hours since I had felt any movement. So at that point, obviously, I assumed they're gone. That's it. They're gone. So we went to Mass, and I don't think I've ever prayed harder in my life. Just constantly saying, "Jesus, I trust in you. I trust in you." And then it was during the consecration. And as the priest elevated the Eucharist, I felt both of them jump.
Wow.
It's like they were leaping for joy in the presence of their Savior. So I have no proof, but I felt like in that moment he had brought them back to life. That they were gone and he had brought them back to life is what I feel like.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is the next day she goes to her appointment and they pull her aside. I went to every appointment with her at the time, and they basically said, "We've never seen this before, but she's back in stage 1, the baby. She's reversed stages."
Wow.
The
Praise the Lord.
Amen. I mean, again, there's the proof is what we what we saw and just our experience, but they said they've never seen it before, and they've talked to. They're like, we called all our fellows, and we've never seen anything like this. And so then, it's fast forwarding through a lot, but basically we ended up making it to 30 weeks and 6 days. And then they immediately we went in for an appointment. They saw the reverse blood flow one time and they're like, "All right, birthday." And so then they had a C-section a couple hours later, babies come out, and one of the twin who had the restriction, the growth restriction, was 1 pound and 11 ounces.
Oh my!
And her twin was 2.5 pounds. And I mean, I have a picture where they were in the NICU. I took my wedding ring and I put it up on her armpit, and I was able to move it
up around her shoulder.
Oh,
and there was space to spare.
That's
how tiny
but it was amazing. And they were in the NICU for several weeks. But throughout the whole NICU, they didn't have any real problems. And then there's a lot to getting discharged. There's a lot we could cover.
Yeah.
That it'd take a long time to talk about, but then we had some other challenges. I don't know if we're going to get into that.
Yeah, we just have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
And that story is amazing. Now, before I forget, you wrote this story up. Where can people have access to it? And then let's go back to just telling how the babies came and how they're doing.
It was on a site called Everyday Mamas. I'm not sure if it's still
out there.
Actually,
okay.
I'm not sure.
They can come to Renewal Ministries. We'll put it up at Renewal Ministries. They can come and read the full story in detail because it's intense and it's long and it's really amazing and heroic
certainly not
love.
The end of the story.
Amazing heroic love that only God really can inspire. But tell us about the birth of the babies and their names and just how they're doing today and all that.
So we from as soon as we found out they're twins and twin girls specifically, we were like, all right, well, what's a good name? And she had always had a devotion to St. Gianna.
To me, that's just that right there is the epitome of motherhood. Laying down your life for your baby. So I've always had a strong devotion to St. Gianna. So I knew my first child would be Gianna always.
Yeah, no, she was a mother who was also a doctor, was she not?
Yep.
And she briefly just
Yeah, she found out she had cancer while she was pregnant, and so she refused all treatment in order to save the baby's life.
Oh, yeah.
The baby was born, and she ended up passing away not long after.
Yeah.
And then we needed a suitable name to go with Gianna. So I had read a story about this amazing woman named Chiara Corbella, and she had a very similar story to St. Gianna, where she had all these health issues. She had a bunch of miscarriages. Then she finally got pregnant again, and she lived in Italy, and they said basically, if you want to carry this baby, you'll die because you have this cancer. And very same story. She said no, and went through tons of trials and suffering and pain to deliver that baby, but she did, and then she died shortly thereafter. So
she was very recent. She passed away not that long ago, actually.
Okay.
So she's not beatified yet, but I know.
We prayed a lot to her too. So,
So we have Chiara and Gianna.
we'll put up a picture of the girls and things. And how are the girls doing?
Great.
Are they
they're doing amazing. They just bring so much joy to our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, we had obviously a long journey that we didn't even talk about after they were born, so many health issues, but they have come out of it so strong and full of so much life and joy, and they have just added more to our lives than we ever could have imagined.
They're such good oldest sisters too. I mean, they've been we were. Sarah's obviously has number 9 on the way, and they're already praying for our next baby.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
So they just love the addition of life. They're super open to life.
How old are the girls now?
8.
They're 8.
Yes.
All right, big girls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know,
that's great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You guys, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And I know there's a lot more to the story, friends. I read the story. I was deeply moved just by their commitment, but especially Sarah's heroic love for her children. It's really, really very inspiring story. And God bless you. I know He's already blessing
Thanks.
you. So thank you for being on the show with us.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right, friends, I want to offer you this free booklet written by Peter Burak, one of our team members, called "What Must I Do to Be Saved?" Really very important question. Right? Ultimately, where are we going to be going? This is offered to you for free. The information, how you can get it, is right there on the screen. But until next week, this is Peter Herbeck and Dan and Sarah Mishler saying, we can trust in the Lord. Jesus, we trust in you. What a beautiful prayer. And they received the grace of God to get through such difficult times by praying that prayer. That's a prayer each and every one of us can pray, and Jesus will be faithful to it. God bless you.
Jesus came to save us. All have sinned, and the wages of sin is death. Without his death and resurrection, we would have no hope of eternal life. In the scriptures, Jesus' teaching on the conditions of salvation is consistent, urgent, and pervasive. But we often gloss over these passages or fail to recognize the vitally important truth Jesus is revealing about whether or not we will go to heaven. In my new booklet, What Must I Do to Be Saved?, I unpack several of these important moments in the Gospels to help us understand what Jesus is saying so we can find and stay on the narrow path that leads to eternal life. To get your copy, visit our website or call the number on the screen.